Jin-Ho Park sat in the pilot's seat of his space freighter, the Star Trader, watching the endless sea of stars through the main viewport. He had been making these supply runs through the outer rim for 15 years, and the sight of space still filled him with wonder. "Captain, we are approaching the Helios sector," announced Araya, his ship's artificial intelligence. "Our fuel reserves are at 70%. "Thank you, Araya," Jin-Ho replied, checking his navigation displays. The Helios sector was known for its dangerous asteroid fields, but it offered the shortest route to his next delivery point. As the Star Trader cruised through the darkness of space, a red light began flashing on Jin-Ho's control panel. An unfamiliar sound filled the cockpit, a pulsing signal that didn't match any standard emergency frequencies. "Araya, analyze that signal," Jin-Ho ordered, sitting up straighter in his chair. "Warning, Captain. The signal appears to be coming from an unknown vessel type. Historical data suggests a 63% chance this could be a pirate trap." Jin-Ho frowned, stroking his chin. In his years of space travel, he had learned that pirates often used fake distress calls to lure helpful captains. But something about this signal felt different. The pattern was too complex, too precise to be a simple trap. "Show me the source location," he said. A holographic map appeared before him, showing a small dot blinking in the middle of a dense debris field. The signal's location made him even more suspicious. Pirates wouldn't risk their own ships in such dangerous territory. "Captain, I must advise against investigation," Araya said. "Company protocol clearly states. Sometimes we have to trust our instincts." "Araya," Jin-Ho interrupted. He adjusted the ship's course, carefully steering toward the signal source. "If someone really needs help out here, they won't survive long enough for another ship to reach them." As the Star Trader drew closer to the debris field, Jin-Ho's eyes widened. Scattered pieces of what looked like crystal and metal floated in space, glowing with a faint, silvery light he had never seen before. "Araya, are you recording this?" he asked, slowing the ship's speed. "Affirmative, Captain. Analysis indicates the debris contains unknown alloys and energy signatures. The vessel design does not match any known spacecraft in my database." Through the fragments of the destroyed ship, Jin-Ho spotted something larger, a badly damaged vessel about half the size of his freighter. Its hull seemed to be made of the same crystalline material as the debris, but parts of it still pulsed with that strange, silvery light. "Life signs?" Jin-Ho asked, his heart beating faster. "One life form detected," Araya reported. "Bio readings are weak but present. Species unknown." Jin-Ho took a deep breath. His delivery deadline was tight, and investigating unknown alien ships wasn't part of his job. But he couldn't ignore someone who needed help, no matter what species they might be. "Araya, begin docking procedures," he ordered, putting on his spacesuit, "and prepare the medical bay. We don't know what condition they'll be in." "Captain, I calculate a 78% chance that this decision will result in complications with your delivery schedule." Jin-Ho smiled as he sealed his helmet. "Some things are more important than schedules, Araya. Sometimes being human means taking risks to help others." As the Star Trader carefully positioned itself next to the damaged vessel, Jin-Ho checked his suit's oxygen levels and emergency tools. He had no idea what he would find aboard that strange ship, but his gut told him this would be more than just another rescue mission. The docking procedure began, and Jin-Ho watched as his ship's airlock extended toward the alien vessel. Whatever, or whoever, was waiting for him on the other side. He knew his life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. Jin-Ho stepped through the airlock into the damaged alien vessel. His helmet lights illuminated a corridor unlike anything he had seen before. The walls seemed to be made of crystal that gave off a soft, silvery glow, though many sections were now cracked or completely shattered. "Araya, maintain connection through my suit's sensors," he said, moving carefully through the wreckage. "Are you still detecting that life sign?" "Affirmative, Captain." The signal is coming from what appears to be the ship's control center, 20 meters ahead. Jin-Ho moved forward, noting the strange symbols etched into the crystalline walls. The air inside the ship was thin but breathable according to his suit's readings. As he approached the control center, he heard a faint sound, something between a whimper and a musical note. The door to the control center was partially melted, creating just enough space for him to squeeze through. Inside, his lights revealed a scene of destruction. Broken crystal panels floated in the low gravity, and sparks flew from damaged equipment. Then he saw her. A figure was trapped beneath a fallen crystal column, her silvery skin giving off a weak glow that pulsed like a fading heartbeat. She appeared humanoid, but her features were more delicate, almost ethereal. Patterns of light moved beneath her skin, though they were clearly growing dimmer. "Hello," Jin-Ho called out, approaching slowly. "I'm here to help. Can you understand me?" The alien's eyes opened, revealing irises that swirled with colors like an aurora. She spoke, her voice producing musical tones that his translator couldn't process. Begin recording these sounds. We might need them later," Jin-Ho said as he examined the column pinning the alien down. "I'm going to get you out of here," he added, making sure his body language conveyed his peaceful intentions. The alien watched him with those mesmerizing eyes as he attached a portable gravity manipulator to the column. The device hummed to life, and slowly the heavy crystal began to lift. Almost there, Jin-Ho grunted, straining to hold the column steady. As soon as there was enough space, the alien tried to move, but she cried out in pain, her skin flickering like a faulty light. Jin-Ho quickly pulled her clear of the debris, noticing how light she felt in the reduced gravity. Up close, he could see that her shoulder and side were badly injured, with patches of her glowing skin turned dark. "What's the status of our medical bay?" "Medical bay is prepared, Captain. However, I must note that our equipment is calibrated for human physiology." The alien spoke again, her musical words taking on an urgent tone. She pointed toward a damaged panel on the wall, then at her own chest. Jin-Ho understood. "There's something you need to take with you." She nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. Jin-Ho helped her stay upright while she pressed a sequence of symbols on the panel. A small compartment opened, revealing a crystal container filled with what looked like glowing plants. The alien clutched the container to her chest, then looked at Jin-Ho with an expression he recognized despite her alien features. Trust mixed with desperation. "Let's get you to my ship," he said softly, supporting her weight as they made their way back to the airlock. Every few steps, her legs would shake, and her skin's glow would flicker dangerously. Just as they reached the airlock, a deep rumble shook the damaged vessel. "Captain," Araya's voice came urgently through his suit. "The ship's power core is becoming unstable. Structural collapse imminent. Hold on tight," Jin-Ho told his passenger, lifting her completely into his arms. He moved as quickly as he dared through the airlock, feeling the alien vessel shuddering around them. They made it back to the Star Trader just as another explosion rocked the crystalline ship. Jin-Ho sealed the airlock and hurried toward the medical bay, carrying his unconscious passenger, whose glow was now barely visible. As he placed her on the medical bed, he realized that saving her life had been the easy part. Now he had to figure out how to help her heal, and how to communicate with a being whose language sounded like music. 3 days passed aboard the Star Trader as Jin-Ho worked to help his alien passenger recover. The medical bay's soft lights reflected off her silvery skin, which had slowly begun to regain its natural glow. He had learned that her name was Newell, or at least that was the closest his human voice could come to pronouncing the musical sounds she made. "Your vital signs are stabilizing," Jin-Ho said as he checked the medical displays. He had gotten into the habit of talking to her, even though they couldn't fully understand each other. "ARIA has been studying your language patterns. We're making progress." Newell sat up carefully on the medical bed, her aurora-like eyes following his movements. She pointed to the crystal container of plants she had rescued, which now sat safely in a special chamber Jinho had set up. "Captain," Araya's voice came through the speakers. "I believe I have identified a pattern in our guests' bioluminescent responses. They appear to correlate with specific emotions and concepts." Jinho watched as patterns of light moved under Haenul's skin, creating swirling designs that reminded him of stars being born. When she was curious, the lights formed spiral patterns. When she was happy, they pulsed like gentle waves. "Can you teach me?" he asked, pointing to her glowing patterns, and then to himself. Haenul's eyes brightened. She raised her hand, creating a simple pattern of light, then pointed to the water dispenser. She repeated the pattern several times until Jinho understood it was the signal for water. Over the next few hours, they developed a simple system. Haenul would create light patterns for basic concepts, and Jinho would show her the corresponding objects or act out simple actions. Araya recorded everything, gradually building a basic translation database. "Food," Jinho said, showing her a protein bar. Haenul created a new pattern of lights, this one resembling a flowering vine. She took the bar, sniffed it carefully, then took a small bite. Her lights flickered in what Jinho had come to recognize as amusement. "Not the best meal, I know," he laughed. "But it's better than emergency rations." Haenul reached for her crystal container and carefully opened it. Inside, one of the glowing plants had started to bloom. She gently removed a small luminescent fruit and offered it to Jinho. "Araya, is it safe for human consumption?" he asked. "Scans indicate no toxic components," Araya replied. "The molecular structure appears similar to common fruits." Jinho accepted the fruit. It was soft and warm to the touch, and it gave off a faint, pleasant glow. When he took a bite, his eyes widened in surprise. It tasted like a mixture of honey and starlight. If starlight had a taste. Haenul's skin brightened with patterns he hadn't seen before, and she made a sound that could only be laughter. She pointed to herself, then made a series of light patterns. "She appears to be telling you that she is a xenobotanist," Araya translated. "The plants are her research specimens." Jinho nodded in understanding. "A space botanist," he said, pointing to the plants, and then making a sweeping gesture toward the stars visible through the medical bay's window. They spent the rest of the day learning from each other. Haenul taught him the light patterns for different emotions, while Jinho helped her understand basic ship operations. Despite their different species, they found ways to share knowledge about their worlds. As ship's night approached, Jinho noticed Haenul's lights had formed a new pattern, one that looked like a simple thank you in glowing script. "You're welcome," he replied, drawing the words in the air with his finger. To his surprise, Haenul's skin mimicked the pattern of his gesture, creating glowing letters that floated beneath her silvery skin. They had found their common language, one made of light, gesture, and shared understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. A week had passed since the rescue, and the Star Trader continued its journey toward the nearest space station. Jinho had converted the ship's recreation room into a temporary garden for Haenul's plants, installing special lights that mimicked her home world's sunlight. That evening, Jinho found Haenul tending to her glowing plants. Her movements were careful but confident, checking each specimen with the attention of a skilled scientist. She looked up as he entered, her skin creating the now familiar pattern for greeting. "I brought something to show you," Jinho said, holding up a small holographic projector. He placed it on a table, and an image appeared, a traditional Korean family celebration, with 3 generations gathered around a table filled with food. Haenul moved closer, her eyes reflecting the hologram's light. She pointed to the different people, tilting her head in question. "Family," Jinho explained, using both words and gestures. "Mother, father, sister, grandmother." He pointed to a younger version of himself in the image. "This was 5 years ago, before I started working in deep space. Understanding flickered across Haynewell's features. She pressed a sequence of symbols on her own data device, projecting an image of her own. The scene showed tall, crystalline structures that seemed to grow from the ground like trees. Several beings like Haynewell moved among them, their skin patterns creating complex symphonies of light. "Your home?" Jin-Ho asked. Haynewell nodded. She pointed to two figures whose light patterns were similar to her own. Jin-Ho realized they must be her parents. Then she showed him images of vast gardens filled with bioluminescent plants, explaining through their shared system of gestures and light patterns that she studied how these plants could help heal sick people. "That's why you risked traveling so far from home," Jin-Ho said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "You're trying to help others." Haynewell's skin brightened in confirmation. She then pointed to Jin-Ho's family image again, specifically to the food on the table. Her lights formed a pattern that Aria had learned meant curious. Jin-Ho smiled and walked to the food synthesizer. He programmed it to create a simple Korean dish, bibimbap with vegetables and rice. The familiar scent filled the room as the food materialized. "This is how we share our culture," he explained, setting the bowl between them. "Through food, family, and stories." Haynewell watched intently as Jin-Ho demonstrated how to mix the ingredients. She picked up the spoon carefully, copying his movements. When she tasted the food, her skin created a new pattern, one that rippled with pleasure and surprise. In return, Haynewell adjusted one of her plants to produce more of the glowing fruit they had shared earlier. She showed Jin-Ho how her people ate them, waiting until the fruit's light pulsed in a specific rhythm before taking a bite. As they shared their meal, Jin-Ho realized how natural it felt to sit here with someone from another species, sharing food and stories without words. Haynewell used her lights to tell him about her people's traditions, how they celebrated births with light-sharing ceremonies, and marked important moments by growing new crystal formations in their home structures. "Your people understand beauty," Jin-Ho said, gesturing to the way her skin created patterns that matched her emotions. "You carry your art with you always." Haynewell's response was to create a pattern that mirrored the scene from his family hologram, but made of light beneath her skin. The message was clear. She understood that humans carried their beauty differently, through memories and traditions passed down through generations. As ship's night approached, they had learned more about each other's worlds than either could have expressed through simple words. Their differences, rather than being barriers, had become bridges to understanding. The peaceful routine aboard the Star Trader was interrupted by the sharp sound of an alarm. Jin-Ho rushed to the bridge, with Haynewell following close behind. "Aria, report status," Jin-Ho commanded, sliding into the pilot's seat. "3 vessels approaching at high speed," Aria responded. Their energy signatures matched the weapons residue found on Haynewell's damaged ship. Haynewell's skin pulsed with a pattern Jin-Ho had never seen before, deep red waves that spoke of fear and recognition. She pointed to the radar display, her lights forming urgent warning signals. "The raiders who attacked you," Jin-Ho said grimly. "They must have tracked us." The pursuing ships were smaller than the Star Trader, but moved faster. Their black hulls absorbed light, making them difficult to see against the darkness of space. "They're charging weapons," Aria announced. Jin-Ho's hands moved quickly over the controls. "Hold on," he warned Haynewell, who had already strapped herself into the co-pilot's seat. The first blast of enemy fire lit up space around them. Jin-Ho rolled the ship, avoiding the worst of it, but some shots struck their shields. "Shields at 80%, Aria reported. Haynewell's fingers flew across her datapad. She showed Jin-Ho a diagram of her ship's defensive systems, specifically how her people used crystalline technology to redirect energy attacks. "Can we adapt that to our shields?" Jin-Ho asked, banking the ship hard to avoid another volley of fire. Haynewell nodded. She pulled out one of her smaller crystal specimens and moved quickly to the ship's engineering panel. Her hands glowed as she worked, connecting the crystal to the shield generators. Warning, Araya said. Unknown technology detected in shield systems. Trust her, Jin-Ho replied, focusing on keeping the raiders at bay. He noticed they were trying to hem the Star Trader in, forcing them toward a nearby asteroid field. Ha-Nul finished her modifications just as the raiders launched their heaviest attack yet. This time, when their weapons' fire struck the Star Trader's shields, something remarkable happened. The shields didn't just absorb the energy. They reflected it back, creating a dazzling display of crystalline light that confused the raiders' targeting systems. Shields holding at 90%, Araya reported, a note of surprise in her artificial voice. Enemy weapons appear less effective. Jin-Ho grinned. Good work, he told Ha-Nul. Now let's show them what else this old freighter can do. He steered the Star Trader into the asteroid field, using the large rocks as cover. The raiders followed, but their faster ships had trouble matching the freighter's sturdy handling among the asteroids. Ha-Nul's skin created patterns that matched the movement of the asteroids, helping Jin-Ho predict their paths. Working together, they turned the dangerous field into their advantage. One enemy ship has sustained heavy damage, Araya announced. They are breaking off pursuit. The second raider ship clipped an asteroid while trying to follow the Star Trader through a particularly narrow gap. Its engines sputtered and died. The third ship fired a final volley before turning away, apparently deciding that one cargo ship wasn't worth losing their entire squadron. As the threat receded, Jin-Ho let out a long breath. He turned to Ha-Nul, whose skin now pulsed with patterns of relief and triumph. We make a good team, he said, smiling. Ha-Nul's response was to create a pattern that combined the light signatures for friend and protector, a new word in their shared language. They had survived not just because of Jin-Ho's piloting or Ha-Nul's technology, but because they had learned to work together, trusting each other's strengths. Their differences had become their greatest advantage. The space station Centauri Point appeared before them, its massive metal rings spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars. After their encounter with the raiders, Jin-Ho had pushed the Star Trader's engines to reach this safe harbor quickly. As they approached the docking bay, Ha-Nul stood at the window, her skin creating patterns that shifted between wonder and worry. The station was one of the busiest trading posts in the sector, where ships from hundreds of worlds met to exchange goods and information. Your people have representatives here, Jin-Ho said softly, showing her the station's registry on a display screen. They can arrange safe transport back to your home world. Ha-Nul's lights dimmed slightly. She placed her hand on the crystal container holding her plants, then looked at Jin-Ho with those aurora eyes. The patterns under her skin formed the symbols they had created together for stay and journey, followed by a question mark. Before Jin-Ho could respond, Araya interrupted. Captain, incoming transmission from the Luminary Diplomatic Office. A stern face appeared on the main screen. Another of Ha-Nul's people, but older, with more complex patterns flowing beneath his silvery skin. He spoke in the musical language of their species, and Ha-Nul's shoulders tensed. Translation available, Araya announced. The Luminary representative demands immediate transfer of their citizen and her research materials. They cite isolation protocols and cultural preservation laws. Jin-Ho watched as Ha-Nul's skin created patterns he had never seen before, shapes that spoke of frustration and rebellion against rules she found too rigid. They say your research is too valuable to risk in outside territories, Jin-Ho said, understanding now why she had been traveling alone, far from approved routes. You were looking for new discoveries, weren't you? Things you couldn't find within their protected spaces. Ha-Nul nodded. She pulled up images on her datapad, showing Jin-Ho the limited areas where her people allowed research. Then she showed him the vast diversity of plants she had discovered in her unauthorized explorations, species that could help both her people and others. The Luminary representative spoke again, his tone growing more demanding. They're sending a ship to collect you. Jin-Ho translated with Araya's help. They say contact with other species will contaminate their culture. That's why they live in isolation. Haynul's response was to create a pattern combining the symbols for fear and small thinking, followed by the pattern for universe, vast and full of possibilities. Jinho understood. The choice wasn't just about where she would go next. It was about choosing between the safe, familiar path her people demanded and the uncertain but exciting journey of discovery she dreamed of. "What do you want to do?" he asked, making sure the transmission from the luminary office was muted. Haynul touched the window, her fingers leaving traces of light on the glass. She pointed to the stars beyond the station, then to the garden they had created together on the Star Trader. Finally, she pointed to Jinho himself, her skin creating a new pattern that combined friend, journey, and future. "You want to stay?" Jinho asked, his heart beating faster. "Continue your research from my ship." The patterns of light under her skin formed a clear, bright yes. Jinho knew this decision would cause problems. The Luminary were powerful, and they didn't like their people mixing with other species. But looking at Haynul's determined expression, seeing the hope and courage in her light patterns, he couldn't imagine forcing her to return to a life of limitations. "Then we'll find a way," he said firmly. Together. The next few weeks tested both Jinho and Haynul's determination. News of their decision spread quickly through the trading routes. Some captains stopped speaking to Jinho, worried about angering the Luminary. Others watched with quiet interest as the unusual pair continued their work. Jinho converted more of the Star Trader's cargo space into a research laboratory for Haynul. The room glowed with the light of her plants and the crystalline equipment she designed. Her presence had changed the ship in unexpected ways. Corridors now sparkled with small crystal growths that helped purify the air, and the medical bay contained several new healing plants. One morning, as they prepared to leave another trading post, a group of merchants approached their ship. Jinho tensed, expecting trouble. Instead, they brought samples of unusual plants from their worlds, offering them for Haynul's research. "We have sick children in our colony," one merchant explained. "We heard your friend can help plants grow medicine." Haynul's skin brightened with joy as she examined the new specimens. Her light patterns showed excitement as she recognized properties similar to her own healing plants. She immediately began working to combine their qualities. Within days, she had created a new hybrid plant that produced medicine more effective than either species alone. The merchant's eyes filled with tears when Haynul explained through Jinho how to grow and use it. Word of their success spread. More traders began seeking them out, bringing both plants and problems for Haynul to solve. Her research database grew rapidly, filled with discoveries that would have been impossible within the isolated Luminary territories. Even some younger Luminary began to contact them secretly, curious about Haynul's work. They sent messages hidden in trade manifests, asking questions about the outside world and sharing their own dreams of exploration. "Your people are watching," Jinho said one evening, showing Haynul the growing number of messages. "You're showing them a different way to live." Haynul's response was to create a pattern that combined change with time, a reminder that big changes happened slowly. She had learned to be patient. The Star Trader's reputation changed too. Ships that once avoided them now requested their help. Jinho found himself carrying not just cargo, but hope, in the form of Haynul's medicines and the story of their unlikely partnership. During a stop at a major trade hub, they received an unexpected message. A group of Luminary scientists, inspired by Haynul's work, had petitioned their leaders to allow limited research partnerships with other species. The petition included data from Haynul's successful projects. "They're listening," Jinho said, watching Haynul's skin create patterns of joyful disbelief as she read the message. "Your courage is changing minds." That evening, they celebrated in their own way. Haynul showed Jinho how to help pollinate a new batch of healing plants, their hands working together among the glowing blossoms. The light patterns on her skin matched the rhythm of his movements, creating a dance of shadows and light. Jin-Ho realized that they had created something unique, not just new medicines or trading partnerships, but a way of working together that proved differences could be strengths. Every successful project, every person they helped, showed that isolation wasn't the only way to preserve what was special about a culture. They were writing a new story, one small choice at a time. 1 year had passed since Jin-Ho had answered that distress signal. The Star Trader looked very different now. Crystal gardens filled specially designed cargo bays, their soft light mixing with the glow of the stars outside. The ship had become famous across trading routes as a place where science and commerce worked together in new ways. Jin-Ho stood at the main viewport, watching Hae-Newell tend to her latest experiment. Her skin created complex patterns of concentration as she carefully crossed 2 species of luminescent plants. The resulting hybrid would help clean polluted water on developing worlds. "Captain," Araya announced, "incoming transmission from the Luminary Science Council." Both Jin-Ho and Hae-Newell looked up in surprise. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to one of the most respected luminary scientists. Unlike their first encounters with luminary officials, this one's skin patterns showed respect and interest. "We have reviewed the results of your collaborative research," the scientist said, speaking in carefully practiced human language. "The Council wishes to establish official research stations in neutral space, following your model of cooperative study." Hae-Newell's skin blazed with joy, creating patterns so bright they lit up the whole bridge. The scientist continued, "Your work has proved that controlled interaction with other species can lead to significant advances. We request your assistance in setting up these stations." Jin-Ho looked at Hae-Newell, who nodded enthusiastically. "We would be honored," he replied. The changes didn't stop there. Over the next few months, they helped establish 3 research stations where luminary scientists worked alongside researchers from other worlds. Hae-Newell's methods of combining different species' knowledge became the foundation for new scientific protocols. Their personal lives changed too. The Star Trader now carried both cargo and scientists between stations. Jin-Ho learned to read Hae-Newell's light patterns so well that other luminary often asked him to teach them about human perspectives. Together, they created a new field of study, cross-species botanical medicine. One quiet evening, as they orbited a peaceful green world, Hae-Newell showed Jin-Ho something special. In her private garden, she had grown a new plant, one that combined the strongest traits of human and luminary botanical traditions. Its flowers glowed with soft light, but they grew in the shape of Korean morning glories, like the ones in Jin-Ho's family garden. "It's perfect," Jin-Ho said softly, understanding the message. Like the plant, they had created something new while honoring both their traditions. Hae-Newell's skin created the pattern they had made together for home, not a place, but a feeling of belonging that transcended species. Jin-Ho reached out, and she took his hand, their fingers intertwining as naturally as their 2 cultures had learned to grow together. The Star Trader's computer chimed softly. "New trade route calculations complete," Araya announced. "Multiple requests for botanical consultation received from developing worlds." Jin-Ho smiled at Hae-Newell, ready for another adventure. Her skin created the pattern for always, followed by the one for together. They had discovered that love, like the hardiest plants, could grow in the most unexpected places. Their story became a legend told in spaceports and science halls, not just of romance between species, but of how courage and understanding could change worlds. As the Star Trader moved toward its next destination, the ship's crystal gardens pulsed with life and possibility. Each plant represented a bridge between worlds, each successful cure a testament to what different species could achieve together. They had created something larger than themselves, a future where differences were celebrated and explored, not feared. Their journey had only just begun.